erecting a claim to infallibility which would lead us back to the Church of Rome. They saw in Virginia very clearly that if the state was enabled to judge according to religion, the consequences would be that it would judge the right of preference amongst the various sects of that religion. And thus they would erect a claim to infallibility which would lead them back to the Church of Rome. As a result of this memorial, the English Church was disestablished in Virginia on January 1, 1777. Not too long after this, there was a push from other certain Christian faiths to replace that Church of England with the establishment of Christianity in general. And therefore, under the cover of a bill introduced into the General Assembly, they sought to establish by a general tax the support of teachers of the Christian religion. Again, the Presbyterians, the Quakers, and the Baptists united against this push to bring religion back into the state. And quoting much of their former memorial, they stated this also: "We would also humbly represent that the only proper objects of civil government are the happiness and protection of man in the present state of existence, and security of the life, liberty and property of the citizens, and to restrain the vicious and to encourage the virtuous by wholesome laws equally extending to every individual. But that the duty which we owe to our Creator and the manner of discharging it can only be directed by reason and conviction, and is nowhere cognizable but at the tribunal of the universal judge. To illustrate and confirm these assertions, we beg leave to observe that to judge for ourselves and to engage in the exercise of religion agreeable to the dictates of our own consciences is an unalienable right which, upon the principles on which the gospel was first propagated and the Reformation from Popery carried on, can never be transferred to another." Here is a very concise declaration of the independence of man to discharge and live according to his own religious convictions. Thomas Jefferson and James Madison took up the cause. And in 1779, the bill establishing a provision for teachers of the Christian religion was defeated. After its defeat, Jefferson then proposed an act for establishing religious freedom in Virginia. And part of it is here, and it must be noted, what Jefferson drew up here as a draft for a bill to be passed, when it was accepted in Virginia, the rest of the American states took much of it themselves, word for word, into their own state constitutions. He says, this was the bill: "Well aware that Almighty God hath created the mind free, that all attempts to influence it by temporal punishments or burdens or by civil incapacitations tend only to beget habits of hypocrisy and meanness, and are a departure from the plan of the holy author of our religion, who, being Lord both of body and mind, yet chose not to propagate it by coercions, on either as was in his almighty power to do, that the impious presumption of legislators and rulers, civil as well as ecclesiastical, who being themselves but fallible and uninspired men, have assumed a dominion over the faith of others, setting up their own opinions and modes of thinking as the only true and infallible, and as such, endeavouring to impose them on others, hath established and maintained false religions over the greatest part of the world and through all time, that to compel a man to furnish contributions of money for the propagation of opinions which he disbelieves is sinful and tyrannical. Be it therefore enacted by the General Assembly that no man shall be compelled to frequent or support any religious worship, place, or ministry whatsoever, nor shall be enforced, restrained, molested, or burdened in his body or goods, nor shall otherwise suffer on account of his religious opinions or belief, but that all men shall be free to express and by argument to maintain their opinions in matters of religion, and that the same shall in no wise diminish, enlarge, or affect their civil capacities. This here is a profound declaration of human rights. That no man shall be compelled to frequent or support any religious worship, place, or ministry whatsoever, nor shall be enforced, restrained, molested, or burdened in his body or goods, nor shall otherwise suffer on account of his religious opinions or belief, but that all men shall be free to express and by argument to maintain their opinions in matters of religion, and that the same shall in no wise diminish, enlarge, or affect their civil capacities. What a beautiful lamb-like act. He goes on to say, and though we well know that this assembly, elected by the people for the ordinary purposes of legislation only, have no power to restrain the acts of succeeding assemblies constituted with powers equal to our own, and that therefore to declare this act irrevocable would be of no effect in law. Yet we are free to declare, and do declare, that the rights hereby asserted are of the natural rights of mankind, and that if any act shall be hereafter passed to repeal the present or to narrow its operation, such act will be an infringement of natural rights. This law was submitted to the whole people of Virginia for them to deliberate and reflect on before the General Assembly would make a vote. However, there was a delay because after the Declaration of Independence, there was the War of Independence. And as that war came on, it pushed aside any movements to bring religion into the state. As soon as that war finished, again, it came back to try and get the state to pay for the teachers of the Christian religion. Thomas Jefferson was no longer present. He had gone to France as a minister. But James Madison took up the cause of religious right as a very personal cause. As this bill establishing the provision for the teaching of the Christian religion was again brought up to the government, he stated this: "The assessment bill exceeds the functions of civil authority. The question has been stated as though it were, is religion necessary? The true question is, are establishments necessary to religion? And the answer is, they corrupt